"Don't come inside, please," she whispered through the half-open door, her voice trembling as the cold wind cut across the lonely prairie. Her small cabin looked fragile against the vast dusk, almost as fragile as her heart. The single mother had been running from her past for too long, and tonight she feared her walls, both wooden and emotional, would fail her. The rough cowboy standing outside wasn't dangerous the way men in her past had been, but he felt dangerous in another way. He could make her hope again, and hope had betrayed her before. She held the door with one shaking hand, torn between fear and yearning. He removed his hat slowly, like a man lowering a shield. The cowboy's eyes were roughened by wind and storms, but kinder than any she had ever seen. He didn't cross the threshold, not even a step, though snowflakes gathered at his boots like a quiet plea. "I ain't here to harm you," he said, voice low, warm, apologetic. "Just wanted to bring the supplies. You didn't come into town this week. Folks worried." She swallowed, knowing he meant himself more than folks. His presence made her heart ache, not with fear, something far more unsettling. Something like safety. Inside the small cabin, her young son slept against the crackling sound of weakening firewood. The mother stole a glance back at him before returning to the door. "I can't take anyone close," she murmured. "People leave. People break things." Her voice cracked at the edges. The cowboy shifted his weight, uncertain, as if wishing to fix every broken piece with his bare hands. "I'm not people," he said softly. "Just a man trying to help." Her throat tightened. Sometimes kindness hurt more than cruelty. Cruelty she understood, kindness she didn't know how to survive. When she tried closing the door, his gloved hand gently steadied it, not pushing, only offering balance. His gentleness startled her more than force ever could. "Let me leave the supplies here, then I'll head out," he said. Snow dusted his shoulders, turning him into a figure carved from winter itself. She hesitated, then opened the door wider, only wide enough for him to place the sack on the floor. Their fingers did not touch. Yet something in the air between them shifted, heavy and warm. Her heart beat against her ribs like a warning she wished she didn't need. As he set the supplies down, the scent of cold leather and pine lingered with him. He straightened, but before she could react, he paused and looked toward her sleepy son. "He looks like he's growing strong," he said. She stiffened instinctively. Compliments about her child were a doorway into her most guarded place. "He's all I've got," she whispered. The cowboy nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing his features. He too had lost things, maybe more than he ever said. He stepped back into the swirling snow, leaving warmth behind him. "You deserve more than fear," he murmured. After he rode away, she leaned her forehead against the door, heart aching in the rhythm of unspoken truths. Every time he came to check on them, she felt the edges of her loneliness loosen, and that terrified her. She'd built her life to survive without trusting any man, and now this one, quiet, rough around the edges, steady in ways that mattered, kept showing up like a promise she wasn't ready to believe. Her son stirred at the faint echo of hoofbeats and mumbled the cowboy's name in his sleep. That broke her a little more. Even her child felt safer when that man was near. The next morning, sunlight spilled over the frost-bitten land. Her son sat by the table, clutching the wooden horse the cowboy had carved for him weeks earlier. The mother felt a heaviness in her chest. She wanted to tell the boy not to grow attached, but how could she when she herself was losing the fight? Still, fear stood taller. She swept her shawl tighter and reminded herself, good men don't stay, rough men take what they want, and miracles don't happen in cabins as small as theirs. Yet the thought of the cowboy not returning created a strange emptiness she didn't want to examine. For days the cowboy didn't come. The chair he sometimes sat on outside her porch gathered snow. She tried focusing on chores, chopping wood, fetching water, mending clothes, but her mind betrayed her with small questions. Was he all right? Had he given up? Had she pushed him too far? She hated that worry felt like longing. She hated that longing felt like loss. When her son asked, "Mama, is he coming back?" she forced a smile she didn't feel. Men like him belong to roads, not cabins, she said. But she whispered a different truth into her pillow that night, "Please come back." A storm rolled in the next evening, harsh and bruising. Wind clawed at the cabin walls. She fought to latch the shutters, her hands trembling. Her son clung to her skirt, frightened by the roar outside. The fire sputtered, threatening to die. She tossed the last of the firewood in, knowing they had no more. Her heart pounded. If the storm grew worse, they wouldn't last the night. She held her son tightly, whispering reassurance she didn't feel. Just as fear tightened around her chest, faint hoofbeats, steady, desperate, rose above the storm's roar. Her breath caught. Only one man would ride through weather like this. The door burst open before she reached it. Snow and wind howled into the room, and the cowboy stumbled inside, soaked and freezing. She gasped, torn between relief and dread. "Storm's talkin', down trees," he said, breath ragged. "You and the boy wouldn't make it alone." She wanted to protest, to tell him he shouldn't have come, but the words tangled. Tonight wasn't about pride. Tonight was survival. She shut the door behind him, sealing them inside together for the first time. Her heart trembled, not from the storm outside, but from the storm rising within her. He dropped his gear and moved fast to block the cracks in the walls, stacking whatever he could find. She watched him work, the urgency in his movements revealing how much he feared for them. When he turned toward her, their eyes locked, time slowing in the flickering firelight. "You should have let me in sooner," he said softly, not accusing, just hurting. She swallowed hard. "I was scared," she whispered, "of letting anyone close." His jaw tightened with quiet understanding. "I'm rough, sure," he said. "But not with hearts." She looked away because believing him felt too dangerous. Hours passed. The storm raged. The cabin trembled. But inside, warmth slowly returned. The cowboy sat near her son, telling him small stories in a soft, rumbling voice that soothed the boy to sleep. She watched silently, a strange ache blooming in her chest as she saw how gentle this rugged man could be. No one had ever spoken to her child with that kind of tenderness. No one had ever stayed through a storm for them. And as she studied his worn face in the firelight, she realized something terrifying. She wanted him to stay, not because she needed help, but because she needed him. When a crack of thunder shook the roof, she flinched. The cowboy moved beside her, steady and solid. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, but her breathing betrayed her. "Storms take me back," she confessed quietly. "Tonight's I promised myself I'd never relive." He didn't ask for details. He didn't try to fix her words. He just sat closer, offering warmth, not touch, not pressure, just presence. It was the safest she had felt in years, and that scared her more than any storm could. She whispered, "Why do you keep coming back?" His answer was simple: "Because I care." When morning arrived, the world lay quiet beneath a thick white blanket, the storm finally exhausted. But inside the cabin, a new storm brewed in their silence. The mother stood by the window, afraid of what daylight demanded. Care was dangerous. Care led to attachment, attachment led to loss. She wrapped her arms around herself and whispered, "You can leave now. Weather's calm." The cowboy faced her, wounded but composed. "If that's what you want, I'll go," he said gently. "But I didn't ride through hell last night just to walk out without making something clear." Her breath held. She wasn't ready for clarity. He stepped closer, not invading, just present. "You pushed me away because you're scared I'll hurt you like those before me," he said. "I get it. But you're wrong about me." His voice trembled just enough to reveal the truth beneath it. "I ain't here to take anything. I'm here to give you something you ain't had in a long time, someone who stays." Her eyes burned as memories clawed their way back, broken promises, doors shutting, footsteps fading. She closed her eyes, whispering, "I don't trust easily." He nodded. "Then I'll earn it slowly." Something inside her cracked, not broken, just opening. Her son tugged her sleeve, looking between them with sleepy eyes. "Mama," he whispered, "you're not scared when he's here." She swallowed, heart thudding. Children see truths adults bury. The cowboy's jaw tightened with emotion he didn't voice. She knelt, holding her son close. "Storms don't scare me when you're with me," she said. But her eyes drifted to the cowboy. She didn't say it aloud, but the truth buzzed in the space between them. Neither do men, not anymore. She stood, meeting the cowboy's gaze, her fear wrestling with something softer, something like longing, something like faith. They spent the next hours clearing snow from around the cabin. The cowboy chopped wood with practiced strength, each swing echoing across the calm morning. She watched from the porch, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Something about the way he worked, not to impress, not to be owed, but simply to help, broke down another wall inside her. When he finished, sweat mixing with frost on his temples, she handed him warm tea with trembling hands. Their fingers brushed. A soft shock ran through both of them. They didn't speak, but the silence was no longer heavy, it was warm, full, promising. When he saddled his horse to leave, her heart stumbled. The thought of him riding away should have brought relief. Instead it felt like losing warmth after discovering it existed. "I'll come check on you in a day or two," he said. She nodded, but the words came out before she could stop them. "Be careful on the road." He smiled, a rare, small smile that softened the hard lines of his face. "I will." The horse pawed the snow, eager to move. The cowboy hesitated one last time. "You sure you're okay?" She nodded, but she wasn't sure of anything except that she wanted him back. Days passed, slow and echoing. She found herself standing outside in the evenings, scanning the horizon for a figure on horseback. Her son asked about the cowboy daily, and each time her answers grew shorter, harder to speak. Loneliness settled again, but now it felt different, like hunger after tasting real food. She tried distracting herself with chores, but the cabin felt too quiet without his deep voice, his steady presence. On the third night, as she sat by the fire, she realized the truth she'd avoided. She didn't fear him hurting her. She feared losing the chance to let him heal her. The fourth day brought news. A trader riding past their cabin mentioned a fallen tree near the river trail. "Nearly crushed a rider," he muttered. "Big fellow, rough lookin', rides a chestnut horse." Her heart lurched violently. She gripped the doorframe to steady herself. "Was he hurt?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. The trader shrugged. "Didn't see. Just heard." Her world narrowed. Fear rose sharp and cold. Without thinking, she wrapped her shawl and called her son. For years she had avoided roads, avoided risk. Yet now, fear of losing one man outweighed every fear she carried. They searched the trail, following broken branches and hoofprints half hidden by frost. She called his name into the cold air, her voice cracking. Her son held her hand tightly, his small steps determined. Finally, near the bend of the river, they found him, alive but pinned under a fallen branch, his horse standing close as if guarding him. Relief hit her so hard she nearly collapsed. The cowboy lifted his head weakly at the sound of her voice. "You came," he murmured. She knelt beside him, tears streaking her face. "Of course I came," she whispered. "I was scared. I thought." She couldn't finish. With effort, she and her son helped free him from the branch. He winced as he stood, leaning heavily on her. "You shouldn't have come," he muttered, though the gratitude in his eyes betrayed his words. She shook her head fiercely. "Don't ever say that again," she whispered. "You matter to us." The word hung in the air, fragile yet powerful. He searched her face, breath catching as if he didn't dare believe her. But she didn't look away. For once, she didn't hide. She let him see everything, fear, longing, hope, because she was done running from what her heart already knew. They walked back slowly, the cowboy leaning on her, her son walking ahead proudly, carrying the cowboy's hat like a treasure. The journey felt longer than it was, filled with unspoken truths weaving themselves into something stronger than fear. When they reached the cabin, she eased him onto the chair by the fire. He watched her quietly, his eyes softer than she had ever seen. "You saved me," he said, voice rough with emotion. "No," she replied gently, brushing snow from his hair. "You saved me first. I'm just finally brave enough to admit it." His breath hitched at her words. As he rested, she made stew, her hands moving with calm she hadn't known in years. The cabin felt different now, warmer, fuller, as if a missing piece had finally been returned. Her son sat beside the cowboy, showing him drawings made with charcoal and scraps of paper. The cowboy listened with quiet attention, a smile touching the corners of his mouth. She watched them, her heart stretching in ways she never thought possible. The fear that once guarded her so fiercely had begun to melt, replaced by something far more terrifying and beautiful, the beginning of love she could trust. That night, when her son fell asleep curled against the cowboy's side, she covered the boy with a blanket and stood across from him, the fire painting soft gold across their faces. "I don't want to run anymore," she whispered. He looked up, eyes wide with something fragile, hope, shock, relief. "I ain't askin' for things you ain't ready to give," he said softly. She stepped closer, her hands trembling. "I know," she whispered. "But for the first time, I want to try. With you." The cowboy inhaled sharply, as if the weight of her words hit deep. He reached for her hand cautiously, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their fingers intertwined slowly, naturally, like something that had waited for years to happen. The warmth of his calloused hand made her feel steady in a way she never believed possible. He whispered, "I'll never step where I ain't welcome." She smiled faintly. "You're welcome," she whispered, blinking back sudden tears. "Inside this cabin. Inside my life. Inside my heart." His breath trembled as he closed his eyes, absorbing every word like a man finally finding home after wandering too long. They sat together by the fire, the cowboy's hand gently holding hers, her head resting against his shoulder. Outside, the world lay silent under the moonlit snow, but inside the cabin, a different kind of quiet settled, peace. A peace she had never known, one built on trust instead of fear, hope instead of caution. For the first time in years, she felt her heart open without breaking. Her son stirred in his sleep, smiling softly, as if sensing the warmth growing around him. And she knew, deep down, that this wasn't the start of something fragile, it was the beginning of something strong. As the night deepened, she whispered the words she once feared to even imagine, "Don't leave." The cowboy turned, eyes shining with a tenderness that undid her completely. "I wasn't planning to," he said. "Not anymore." She closed her eyes, letting relief wash over her. She had spent years guarding her heart behind walls built from pain. Tonight, she let those walls fall. The cowboy held her gently, as if holding something precious, and she felt warmth bloom in places long cold. Love, she realized, wasn't something to fear, it was the storm shelter she'd been missing. Morning painted the cabin in soft gold. The cowboy stood on the porch, his arm carefully around her shoulders as her son played in the snow outside, laughter echoing across the quiet land. The frost glittered like scattered diamonds. She leaned into the cowboy, feeling his steady heartbeat against her cheek. "I was wrong to fear you," she whispered. "You're not the storm, you're the calm after it." He pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, gentle, respectful, full of promise. "And you," he murmured, "are the home I've been riding toward my whole life." For the first time in years, she stepped outside her cabin without fear, not because the world had changed, but because she had. Love didn't break her, it rebuilt her. The cowboy smiled as her son ran up to hug them both, the three forming a warmth strong enough to melt the coldest winter. She held their hands tightly, knowing she would never again face life alone. The world stretched wide and bright before them, no longer filled with danger, but with possibility. She looked at the cowboy with a heart finally unafraid and whispered the words that completed everything, "Come inside, and stay."